Hello, students. We begin The Return today by Guji wa Thiong'o. The story takes place in Kenya, in Africa. Now, let's read over the background here. The British colonial government controlled Kenya, the setting of this story from the late 19th century until 1963. In 1952, this government declared a state of emergency in order to violently suppress the Mau Mau rebellion, an anti-British uprising by the Kikuyu ethnic group. Over 20,000 Kikuyu were imprisoned by the government, and over 10,000 people lost their lives during the fighting. This ethnic group, the Kikuyu, they are the largest ethnic population in Kenya. I create my notes right here, and then I write my annotations off to the side there. So you'll see as we go through this the various comments that I've made. This is a close read. So you're going to read it by yourself, and then we're going to take a look together with a nice close read. This is something you'll be able to do by the end of this year. You'll be able to annotate and take notes and read, and have a very close understanding. Today, we're going to focus on predicting. So as we read through this story, as we start the story, let's predict what might happen. Where is this going? This will make us have a closer relationship with what we're reading. Um, the road was long. Whenever he took a step forward, little clouds of dust rose, whirled angrily behind him, and then slowly settled again. I've highlighted this. What can we predict from the very first line? A long, dusty road with small clouds of dust behind the main character. These are angry little clouds behind him. What mood does this create? Is this a happy beginning? Um, Answer that for yourself. Think about that. Predict, okay? And as we continue to predict here, you'll start to see where this is going. But a thin train of dust was left in the air, moving like smoke. He walked on, however, unmindful of the dust and ground under his feet. Yet with every step, he seemed more and more conscious of the hardness and apparent animosity of the road. And it was every step he seemed more and more conscious of the hardness and apparent animosity of the road, animosity, the anger of the road, the hatred. Um, he's becoming more aware of just where he is going, right? Not that he looked down. On the contrary, he looked straight ahead as if he would any time now see a familiar object that would hail him as a friend and tell him that he was near home. So he's eager to meet someone familiar to him. Where is he going? Do we assume he is heading home? But the road stretched on. He made quick, springing steps, his left hand dangling freely by the side of his once white coat, now torn and worn out. Quick, springing steps. If you're springing along, that's pretty happy, right? Like the Easter Bunny, just springing along. His right hand bent at the elbow, held onto a string tied to a small bundle on his slightly drooping back. The bundle, well wrapped with a cotton cloth that had once been printed with red flowers, now faded out, swung from side to side in harmony with the rhythm of his steps. This is a nice swing he's got there with the harmony, the rhythm. It, it's starting to sound like he's excited to return home. The bundle held the bitterness and hardships of the years spent in detention camps. I didn't highlight this, but this is important. Where was he? He's coming from detention camps. I'm going to make a note here on this read to always catch things here. Which I caught that the first time, but just it's important to realize that he's leaving a horrible place and he's coming home. Um, all right, detention camps. Other places are hell, like a prison. Now and then he looked at the sun on its homeward journey. Sometimes he darted quick side glances at the small hedge strips of land, which, with their sickly looking crops, maize, beans, and peas, appeared much as everything else did, unfriendly. The whole country was dull and seemed weary. All right, so how does the author describe the countryside, the narrator? Notice the words unfriendly, dull, and seemed weary. What does this say about the setting? To Kamal, this was nothing new. He remembered that even before the Mau Mau emergency, the overtilled Gikuyu holdings wore haggard looks in contrast to the sprawling green fields in the settled area. Business as usual? Um, but it's a flashback. Let me move my picture up here if I can. Um, it's a flashback. He remembers how it used to be. So he's going back into the past, part of a storytelling technique. A path branched to the left. He hesitated for a moment and then made up his mind. So was he confused there for a moment? Not remember how to get home? How long has he been gone for? You can ask questions on every line. Every line may cause you to predict something. For the first time, his eyes brightened a little. What's going on there? He's actually a little happy. What can we guess or infer about that? What are his eyes brightening about? As he went along the path, I would take him down the valley and then to the village. At last, home was near, and with that realization, the faraway look of a weary traveler seemed to desert him for a while. The valley and the vegetation along it were in deep contrast to the surrounding country. For here, green bush and trees thrived. This could only mean one thing: Honia River still flowed. So, getting? What sort of message is this creating here? What is this? He's coming out of this horrible walk. He's been on this journey, and now he's coming into this beautiful place full of green plants, and the river is still flowing. There's hope, right? You can guess or make your own predictions about what he's saying there. He quickened. He quickened his steps as if he could scarcely believe this to be true, till he had actually set his eyes on the river. Still doesn't believe it until he sees it, right? It was there, it still flowed. Honia, where so often he had taken a bath, plunging stark naked into its cool living water, warmed his heart as he watched its serpentine movement around the rocks and heard its slight murmurs. A painful exhilaration passed over him, all over him, and for a moment he longed for those days. He sighed. He's having nostalgia. He's missing the past, how beautiful things were. It was great back then. Um, Perhaps the river, we'll stop here. Perhaps the river would not recognize in his hardened features that same boy to whom the riverside world had meant everything. Yet as he approached Honia, he felt more akin to it than he had felt to anything else since his release. This is way better than anything he's felt before. The narrator personifies the river as someone who does not recognize the author. Maybe doesn't recognize it. Him. How is this effective? This technique, this poetic technique. How can we predict what will happen to the main character as he returns home from here? Will he be warmly welcomed? How will he be welcomed? All right, we're going to stop here with our close reading, and we'll continue this tomorrow.